live. Yeah. Anyway, so I start a couple minutes early because I've never done it before. I want to make sure that it works, all that kind of stuff. So, let's see here. So, anyway, try to get glare on my glasses. Not gonna work. It's just too sunny. This is ironic because it's raining outside. Anyway, I thought since it's Friday the 13th, well, I didn't realize after I decided to do it today because I'm not good at keeping track of the dates, but since it was Friday the 13th, that I would just say some stuff that's a little spooky, a little bit kind of, I don't know, just like weird stuff that's going on that nobody knows, like, answers to. So, if you haven't seen, if you follow me on Facebook, it's Robert Mobile Homestead on there. I post stuff about UFOs and stuff like that, which is a good Friday the 13th topic. I would assume it's a pretty good Friday the 13th topic, you know. But look up Bob Lazar, look up all his stuff. If he's lying, he should play poker because he would be the best poker player in the history of the world. So, speaking of which, I do play poker. I haven't played in a while. I think the last time I played was my birthday last year, and I ended up coming in fourth, so I did all right that time. But besides UFO stuff, one thing that I always thought was weird, like that no medical professionals, nobody really cares about looking into and finding out about, is why a negative, the negative blood type exists. They just know it's there, but they don't know it exists. And if you don't know what the negative blood type is, it's a, there's positive and negative blood type. And the negative and positive is for the rhesus monkey protein. So, and that should be in, and this is just, you know, this is me trying to figure it out, but if that's a protein that everybody else, or that everybody should have, then, because if you think about it, everybody should have that protein, or that's not like it's not like a gene type thing, it's just protein your blood has. If everybody came to Africa and there's no tampering with the bloodline by anything or anyone, which that's a complete possibility, that there's been some DNA somewhere injected into the human species that isn't necessarily human. So it could be aliens. Another possibility, though, I mean, that I've looked at is if Jesus is, right, God's son, well, that means that he would only have part human DNA, right? And so, following along that path, and the fact that there's time for the live stream to start. Like I said, want to start a little bit sooner, since it's the first one. I want to make sure everything's working and all that kind of stuff. But if that's the case, right, then you could have then God would be part of that DNA. And then if you follow logically, not just the Gospels that are in the Bible, but if you look into the Gnostic Gospels, which are the Gospels of the other disciples, by the way, which I think it's weird that it's only 4 of the disciple stories that are in there. Anyway, there's in the Gnostic Gospels, it does talk about Mary Magdalene being married. And more than likely, if they were married, they had children as well. And the reason why it's likely that Jesus was married is because in order to be a rabbi, especially back then, you had to be a married male. And Jesus was a rabbi. So, I would contend if that's where you want to go with it, that means that at that point in time, DNA was injected into, or not, I guess DNA, but the missing other part of that protein was injected into the human species. Now, you may go, oh, that's kind of crazy or whatever. Crazy part is that if you're I have negative blood, but if you're a female that has a negative blood type, you have to get medication to prevent your body from aborting a fetus that has positive blood type. Okay, so for me, that makes me think that it's some outside intervention, because evolutionary wise, having that happen where a female aborts a baby because it's not the same blood type, evolutionary wise, that's how do I put this? That doesn't even work, right? Because you're killing off potential offspring before they're even born because they're not the same blood type. That's weird, right? And now I want you to go, you can go in your Google machine. Nobody has an answer of why it exists. And for some reason, I find it odd that there's nobody even wanting to research it. You know what I mean? Like, I would think there would be a PhD, like a medical researcher, medical specialist, any of that stuff that would be interested in why it exists in the first place. So, I'm going with the Bob Lazar thing. When he worked at S4, which is a sub-base of Area 51, when he worked there, he said he read a document about where they came from and all that stuff. So I just wonder myself if that's part of it in there too. So I don't know where that came from. I just always thought that was odd and a spooky thing for Friday the 13th to share with everybody. And there's just lots of stuff like that. Like, I like to think about, like, simulation theory and all this kind of stuff. I just like to think about crazy big ideas that are way out there just because it's fun to do. It's fun to do sometimes. It's fun not to always be so serious and only think about, things that have answers. Sometimes it's fun to think about stuff that doesn't have answers. That's just how I like to look at things. I've just always been a curious person. I remember when I was very small, I would watch, we didn't have, cable cable wasn't a new thing when I was very, very young. It was just barely starting to come out, but we didn't have cable, and very, very few people did have cable at that time. But so I watched a lot of stuff that was broadcast over there. So I would watch like PBS, and all that kind of stuff. And on PBS, instead of watching stuff that where you would think a younger kid would watch, like, oh, I don't know, Sesame Street, that kind of stuff, which I'm not saying I never watched, I did, but I remember distinctly when I was younger, I'd watch like This Old House and all that kind of stuff. My favorite show on Nickelodeon. And there's even people my age that don't, that don't remember it, but the few times that we did have, and then even later on, it would replay overnight, would be Mr. Wizard. I used to watch that all the time. I'm intrigued by science, and actually, there's a lot of people that think that science, God, are incompatible. When in fact, the more stuff that you look into science and like especially like astrophysics stuff, if you look at that, and like black holes and all that stuff, there's more of a case for there's some sort of entity, whether you want to call it God or whatever you want to call it, for it to have, how do I put this? For it to have created a universe. Does that make sense? For something to have created a universe just because of how complex some things are, but there is also simplicity in that complexity. What I mean is, there's a bunch of math going around of how worlds exist, but basically they suck in all the matter and make it disappear. I mean, it's basically what happens to it. It disappears. You can say it goes down to a, singular point, which is fine, but in all manner of speaking, it just disappears into darkness. So it's pretty simple. It's like a vacuum cleaner, right? A space vacuum cleaner. So I just like to get curious about that kind of stuff, and for me, it's just become more of a thing of, I want to see how many ideas are out there. I want to see how many different ideas I can come across, right? So when I look at religion in general, and I know there are people that are very, very against some of this thought, but the fact of the matter is, if you look at what most religions teach, right? At least all the ones I come across, is basically the same teaching. But then at the end, they say, but we're the only right way. Well, at some point, I look at it and go, I don't think there's a way. I think that was your human part. If you want to say that they're inspired by God and God got their hand writing everything, the human part of you said, oh, I'm the only one that's right. Because if all the religions say, hey, we go somewhere after we die, then why are you fighting over who's right? Do you want to explore and say, that's interesting. That's interesting. So I like to take things in a whole, because there's bad things about every religion. There's bad things about, good things about every religion. Okay? Whether that's Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or whatever, right? It mainly comes back to man's sense of uneasiness about the fact that we know that we have a finite existence, and at least in the physical form, we have a finite existence. Okay, what happens after we die? I don't know. I can't be sure, but we'll see. I hope it's, I hope it's this, great thing, and we go hang out with Jesus and all these other people and hang out in heaven. That'd be great. Um, but even if that doesn't happen, it doesn't change the fact that whatever Jesus said, or any other religious leader that said, hey, you gotta love, one another, and if not love one another, love the other people that are in your church. It doesn't change that fact, and makes me go. The love part also makes me realize that love is one of the only emotions that I know of that is different depending on who it's directed towards, and also what it means to a person. Which again is one of those weird things. And then when you see a lot of things where they go, well, God is love, kind of makes sense, right? So that's kind of spooky stuff, I'm just weird like that, I guess. But anyway, besides the Friday the 13th spooky stuff, and it's full moon, it's a harvest moon, so a lot going on today as far as if you want to go the spooky route. I've never been a superstitious person, and not because I think it's the devil's work to be superstitious. It's just I've had so much bad stuff happen in my life that, Friday the 13th could be any day. It could be Tuesday the 20th, for all that matters, okay? But what's going on right now, I'm in that empty mobile home, basically. There's a few little pieces. This is sitting on a piece of furniture, but we're planning on, as soon as I can get Roger rolling, I have a problem with the starter, so I've got to get a new wire ran for the starter, solenoid and all that kind of stuff. So I've got to get that going. I've got to get that going, because depending on, and we're going to try to do it. There's a auction, tax title auction. Maybe we call something else in the county where you live in, but it's another way for you to look at buying property. If you want to buy property to build your homestead, build your farm, build whatever, you can go, and depending on where your county's at, and I know some places use websites. The one that deals with where I live is bidforassets.com. They're not paying me anything, by the way, just so you know. I wish they were, then I could get the land for free. But anyway, I would look into that, especially if you don't have a lot of resources. Because a lot of these places, sometimes, especially if it's not a really popular area, if it's a rural area, you get property off of one of these auctions, sometimes for under $1,000, under $500, okay? Now maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's not the land you want for your homestead or your farm or whatever forever. But you could buy a piece of land. And I would look into what in your county is your building code, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Like, we're going into Roger into the RV, so one of the things I have to look at is what is the situation with RVs and living them where you're at. So here where I'm at, you can do it just fine. Now, the city might have different things, but the county, you're fine. You just need to get some sort of sanitation system. So whether that's septic, sewer, whatever you need to do. And I've asked, well, if I have a composting toilet, can I just, do front drain for the thing? No, they want sewer or septic. Or I guess a holding tank would work as well. But so that kind of is something you need to look at and think about. But other than that, I have found, at least in my county, people that are in charge of it, which is the assessor in this county. Probably most counties the assessor, but if it's not, I'm sure you can find out who's in charge of selling the land or whatever. There's tax title, which is usually just a county selling surplus property, selling this, selling that, and then there's also foreclosure auctions as well. So that's something I would look at. I would definitely look at, especially if you don't have money to come up for a down payment or credit's not good enough to get a mortgage or whatever. I would definitely look at that, because that's what I plan on doing. If we don't get one through that, I'm also looking at owner finance land, which is another option you can do. And basically going to be paying those, whoever have the owner finance land, maybe the same amount I'm paying rent where I'm at now, because for me, right, if I can do that, maybe I can pay off that piece of land in 2 years. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, I might get something at auction, because it's cheap enough. Now I know it. And the other reason, if you can get auction and you can buy it cheap, you could probably put it right back up for sale and sell it for a profit very easily. Because a lot of people don't know about getting auctions and about buying surplus property from the county. Now, I want you to tell you this as well. At least where I'm at, you can go in and sometimes they'll have a list of properties that you can just buy something over the counter from, go in there with the money and just buy it. And we're not talking a lot of money. So it's definitely an option to look at, guys. And try to keep these live streams short. I don't want to, especially for people that normally watch any of my videos, I don't want this necessarily to be much longer than any of those, because I know, at least for me, that some of the longer live streams, especially if I'm not there when it's happening and able to chat and all that kind of stuff with anybody, it's kind of rough to get through, because a lot of times they're talking to people that are, they're chatting in their chat. And if you're not watching that, if you don't have the chat replay up and just watching, like, let's say on your TV or whatever, it doesn't make sense for part of it. So I just want to keep them short for that particular purpose. But my brain freezes. If you haven't watched my other videos, just so you know, part of the disability I have is my brain sometimes just stops. And that's why I would have a hard time if I ever worked for anybody, because I just can't. I'm not useful that way. I'm gonna maybe eventually try to start my own business here, but I'm not useful to anybody, and trust me, I've worked like an ox most of my life. Uh, whistle start to whistle stop, very rarely taking a break. And my body's paid the price for it, that's for sure. But, I've got two, I don't know if you can really see it on the camera here. I'm not showing up too much now, that's good. But I have a little bit right there, you can see it right here there, where I've had, 2 titanium discs put in my neck, because I beat my body up so much. And I have 2 discs in my neck, and I'm 36, so that should further, don't necessarily do what I do, beat your body up. Take some breaks, take your lunches, do all that stuff, because the bill will come due one day. And if you've decided to put it on credit most of your life, when that bill comes due, it's gonna come due, and it's not gonna be nice. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like I said, I'm gonna try to leave them about 20 to 30 minutes when I do these. I might try to do them, Friday at noon, Pacific, 3 Eastern, mainly because a lot of the other channels that I watch and stuff like that don't have them going on at this time, and don't really matter to me if people show up or not, but it is nice to do, and if anybody wants to interact with me. So, please, if you're watching this on replay, please subscribe. I'm just trying to get to 100, just so I don't have all those weird letters and numbers after my channel. So that's my only goal. Whatever happens after that happens. But just want to leave you guys with that. Go out there and have a spooky Friday the 13th, or a nice Friday the 13th, or whatever. Whatever you want to do. Go out there and think about things. If you want to, go ahead and leave a comment about some strange stuff that you think about, some strange things that you don't know why there's no answers for. Put it in the comment. I'll read it. I'll respond. I usually do. If nothing else, usually if you comment on my videos, I'll give you the heart, which I kind of wish more channels would do, because it really doesn't take that long, but people on the other side go, oh, hey, at least somebody read it, So anyway, that's all for now, and I will see you guys next week at this time for another live stream, and tomorrow for another video. And the video is going to be one that that's a tag video, the challenge video, and it's going to be what 3 things did you learn from your garden this year. And since it's my first year actually having a garden that's produced things, I learned more than 3, but I'll tell you the most important 3 that I learned. So till next time, thanks guys, and have a good weekend.